Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner, episode number 244B. And we are discussing the classic 1964 first pilot of Star Trek, The Cage. With me tonight to discuss this classic from the Star Trek series is my friends from SciFi Distilled, Mike and Marybeth. Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How's everybody tonight?
I see people are rolling into the audience. Hi, guys.
Hey, there's Bill. We know him. We know Bill. We know Jeff.
Yep, we know Bill. We know Jeff. Bill Sotek. Yep.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Yep. And let's see, Jeff Rubel.
I'm going to talk about one of the better Star Trek episodes tonight, even though it wasn't a Kirk episode.
Hey, Mark. Good to see you out there. Yeah, he's going the cage. Yeah, I know. This is actually definitely one of my top 10 favorite episodes, especially as a standalone episode. And that's not even saying anything about the menagerie, but
yeah,
that's a whole separate.
So entity. Clever, so
yes.
Clever.
So let's get to it. When did you first see The Cage? That is my question to start off.
It had to be the 80s when they released it on the VHS, I think.
Yeah.
When I saw it full out. Of course, we all saw the menagerie.
Right.
In the 70s, when the reruns went over. But to see the full Cage, I had to be, I'm fairly certain it was, I had the CBS, the VHS series, and I think they put it on that, if I remember. I think that was really the first time I actually saw it in its entirety as an episode. And in fact, just recently watching it, it seemed different. I'm like, this isn't quite how I remember it. I don't know. Maybe I'm channeling too much menagerie, but so it was definitely the 80s. I couldn't tell you specifically when.
No. How about you, Marybeth?
Yeah, I think the same. I really feel like I saw it on TV, but whenever it was finally getting airplay. So 80s, maybe even 90s. I knew what it was. I knew that it was what the menagerie came from.
Right.
So I don't remember. Yeah, I don't know.
Weren't they showing it like at conventions though? Like they had rolled it out like on film.
May have been, yeah.
Like they had showed it at some of the conventions. I thought even in the 70s. I guess.
Well, here's the thing: Gene Roddenberry actually had a 16 millimeter print of it. I guess the 35 millimeter print had been chopped up when they used it for the menagerie. He had his own 16 millimeter copy of it, and then to your point, he was bringing it to the different conventions. And I think it was in 1986 when they released it when they were doing the Star Trek release, and when it was on VHS, and then I'm really dating myself here, when it was on beta. They actually had it in the beta format as well, too. And when they released that, it was done as a special because they actually they had taken the black and white portion that Gene Roddenberry had and incorporated it with the edits that had taken place from when they did the menagerie. So you would be watching it and it would be in color 1 minute. And then with those deleted scenes, so to speak, that had been removed or extracted for the menagerie for the two-parter, then they would show those black and white segments. And there's even a portion in there, too, where the keeper is speaking, and Malachi Throne, who we know as Commodore Mendez from the menagerie, actually was voiced as the keeper. And you can actually hear his voice very, for like maybe a couple, maybe like 10 seconds, he makes a comment or something. But then shortly after that, there was an archivist that discovered the 35 millimeter print of The Cage. However, it did not have the audio. And then what happened was it was turned over to Gene Roddenberry. And then what they did was then they released The Cage in its color entirety. It was like the full episode, but it wasn't like, chopped up, so to speak. And to your point too, Marybeth, you said that you thought you maybe saw it on television. Patrick Stewart had done a presentation when Star Trek Next Generation was on, and they actually were doing different interviews. But what they did was during that presentation, they showed The Cage, which was kind of cool. And it was broadcast on television, and that I think in 88, if I remember correctly. It was during the writer's strike that was going on. But I mean, it's pretty cool because we grew up with watching Star Trek, and then we would get to see these different types of segments with the menagerie, and then of course Where No Man Has Gone Before, where the uniforms were altered, the bridge was different, the transporter room So it was really cool as time evolved that we kind of got to find out more about all of this and kind of piece it together.
Yeah, it's interesting because I watched it just the other day on Paramount Plus, and of course the version they're showing is the enhanced effect version.
Yeah,
but I swear there was scenes in there that I don't remember, like the scene in the park where he's with the horse and everything. I'm like, there's like a whole conversation that go on between her, Pike, and
Vina.
and Tina, Vina, and it's like, was that? I don't remember that. Like,
You're right, Mike.
I know it wasn't in the menagerie, but I'm wondering if was there added stuff even after
even another scene for the cage?
Yeah, they definitely had added that.
There was more, like several of those scenes, and it actually made things make more sense. Like because you're like, oh, okay, now they had this conversation, so that reaction makes more sense. Where you could tell where they edited it and it didn't really fit.
Right.
Lou's
commenting. Lou is joining us from Rhode Island. He said, I saw the cage in black and white on a 16mm print at the 75 Star Trek convention at the Commodore Hotel. It was exciting and people were screaming and passing out as it was a real experience.
It was like the Beatles, apparently.
It must have been like when we were in Vegas and Patrick Stewart came out. I don't know if you remember that, Rizzo, or not.
I wasn't. No, see what happened.
You weren't in the room.
I was in the photo op line, and I got a text from my wife saying Patrick Stewart's here. And I'm like, well, I was in the
we were all screaming. I can't say anyone was passing out.
And then I said, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, my wife just said Patrick Stewart. And everybody below me in line believed me. I'm like, no, he's not here. And I'm like, no, she's just texting me. He's at the main stage right now. So I never actually got to see him.
Sorry.
May's joining us from Canada. Hi, May. And Shari is downstairs joining us. Hi, hon.
Just in Canada.
Hi, everyone. Scary heads. Yes, the heads, as the Telosians are referred to.
Yes, the Telosians.
Marsha's saying, I first saw it in an edited version when Roddenberry brought it to an appearance around 1986. Yeah, and that would have been the same time it was released on video. And Randy saying, the color footage from the cage was rediscovered in the 80s. Yep, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and here's the other thing, too. The time frame from the 80s to the 60s, again, you're only talking about maybe like 22 years, which really doesn't seem like a long period of time for us now. But back then, it felt like an eternity because
everything seems like it was so long. Because even when you think about, we just passed, by the way, the 45th anniversary of the motion picture.
Yep.
And which was actually, it was yesterday or the day. Yeah, was it 7th? Yeah, it was yesterday.
It was yesterday. Yeah.
So we just passed that. And remember, that was only like 10 years.
I know. Yeah.
And it seemed like
an eternity.
But it was only 10 years between the end of the show and the motion picture. So it's crazy. And how now it's like we look at stuff and it I don't know, even Star Wars. I mean, what do we have? It was, we had 78, 77, and then what was the Jedi? Not Jedi.
80.
Empire was 80.
Empire was 80.
Jedi was 83.
And that seemed like an eternity. Just having 3 years between us. So yeah, it's kind of funny that we look at the cage like not even barely 20 years later.
Yeah.
And
well, look at it this way. I mean, what was Star Trek Enterprise? That went off in 2005 and it went on in 2001, I think. So that literally is 23 years ago.
I want to say 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
It only ran the 4 seasons. So yeah, it was. And then there was a huge gap until Discovery launched in 2016, 2017?
Well, we had JJ Trek real quick in there.
Well, yeah, I'm talking TV shows.
Disco was 2017.
Well, it was announced. I remember at the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, they announced at the New York convention, they had the signs up for Star Trek Discovery.
2017.
So I was going to say it was 17. Yeah.
So it's 7 years. Wow, that's crazy. That went quick.
I remember 2024, which is actually not that bad of a run. I mean,
no, it's not.
They got 5. They got one more season than Enterprise did.
Yeah.
Mark, you should have. Yeah, I've actually had Chris Hunter on the show before, Mark, and probably in the future we'll definitely have him back on too again. Randy is saying it cost $630,000 to produce. Yeah, that's a lot of money back then. Absolutely.
Totally. Well, the joke was that they didn't even like it. They spent all that money and then they bring it to NBC, and NBC, well, it's too cerebral.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was just such a shame because there's a lot of it
It
I
was
like.
like the audience aren't going to get it.
Well, talking about that, so yeah, let's dive right into that. What did you both think of the story as far as a story for a pilot? And I mean, when we've it's hard to even imagine not having seen it or seeing it for the first time, or again, as we get older, our thoughts change. But I guess right now, I mean, what are your thoughts about as far as how it stood and how it stands? I mean, there's a lot of good with it, and of course, it's very dated with some of the
that's
factors
exactly
that
what
they deal with.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. A few little dated things, but for the most part, that's real science fiction. Like that's like what you would read if you were getting like a sci-fi anthology and reading all the great writers. Like it was. I liked that it was cerebral. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I loved number one. I loved Boyce. Boyce.
You're right.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I don't know why they thought. I mean, again, I wasn't a TV exec in the 1960s, so what they were thinking, I guess, they were looking at westerns and stuff. Remember that this science fiction was just, kind of coming into it. This was like a new thing, and everything was westerns. So what are westerns? They're all gunfights and fist fights, and I think that's what they were like. Oh, this is like a like a Twilight Zone kind of episode where you had to kind of think and that kind of thing. And I think that's what they were thinking they were going to get, because it was sold as Wagon Train to the Stars.
Exactly.
That they were going to get more, fisticuffs and whatnot. So my guess is that's when they said
more like Firefly. They wanted more like Firefly.
Yeah, they thought, well, even Firefly, the first episode they didn't think was exciting enough to put it on, so they did Train Job first. So
because they needed
they wanted more of that to get suck people in. So the question I guess is had they gone with it and that it's kept in that format and style,
there's something about
they not made the second pilot.
Yeah, there's something about TV and movies. There's something about that just makes studios say, dumb it down a little, dumb it down. And so finding smart TV is rare. And when you do find a good smart show, cling to it for dear life.
Yeah, right. That's still a thing. They still look at
it. They do exist, but I feel like they're in the rare. They're rare,
Well, the thing with TV in general is most people are there. They don't want to think a lot. They want to just sit down and be entertained. They want to sit down and be entertained.
When I compare the original Battlestar to the Battlestar reboot, that's a great example of a show getting smarter. And it was good. It was really good. So, I mean,
yeah, they did a great job.
There's an audience for it. Just give it to them. I mean, Disco should have been smarter. Strange New Worlds probably should have been smarter.
Yeah, this is true. One of the comments out there was about about CBS and Lost in Space. Interesting enough, what had happened was they actually had gone to CBS, and CBS passed it, and they said that they had their own show which entailed was Lost in Space, because the pilot for Lost in Space, No Place to Hide, was actually shot in '64, but then it went to series in '65, and then it was with NBC. And part of it too was Lucille Ball, Desilu Studios, her show was on CBS too, so that was something that would have really been kind of really cool if they could have had bridged that.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm pulling this out of my brain, not off of actual information. I thought Roddenberry they were shooting near Outer Limits, or he'd seen Outer Limits, or he was watching Outer Limits. I think Outer Limits, and that's a reasonably smart show, that was one of his inspirations, or something that he was like, okay, we're going to try to make it like this.
Well, a lot of the folks from that worked on Outer Limits, actually Robert Justman came from Outer Limits.
Yeah.
Hua Chang had worked on Outer Limits as far as designing a lot of the prosthetics.
I know they shot next to Mission Impossible, but I think Outer Limits shot somewhere, or if they overlapped or not. Let's look.
Yeah, Mission Impossible shot on the studio next to Star Trek. Star Trek was what lot?
Yeah.
8 or something, and
they shot at Desilu. I don't think
Desilu and Mission Impossible shot next door at like 9 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think Outer Limits was shot at Desilu Studios though.
No, I don't think so either. I think that was ABC, right?
It was.
So that's when Roddenberry brought Star Trek did that. So that's what they're like. Well, we have Twilight Zone.
Yeah, maybe. So that Islands was 63 to 65. So it would have been just wrapping up while Roddenberry was kicking off.
Yeah.
Although the Cage was filmed in 64. So.
And he wanted to have Robert Justman as a associate producer originally, but he passed, and then he got him in as an assistant director, if I remember correctly, for that.
Hey, both shows had Harlan Ellison, so they got that going for him.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Vince, good to see you out there. And let me see here. Bill Williams saying, I remember at the end of Lost in Space end credits, there was a voiceover inviting people to watch Star Trek. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Sure that wasn't in reruns there, Bill?
Yeah, right.
That sounds like it was after they were in the
Lost in Space was not.
I don't think they would have done that during. Yeah, they were on different networks.
They were on different
somebody
networks.
else.
Yeah, so that a lot of competition with that. But yeah, I mean, Roddenberry definitely pulled the talent from. I mean, a lot of those folks again came over from Outer Limits.
Run.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bill thinks original run. I don't know.
I don't know why they would do that, Bill. But hey,
especially with
different studios, different networks, doesn't seem like it would. I don't know.
65 to 60.
You got to call shenanigans on that one, Bill.
But anyway,
Lucy had pulled. Maybe Lucy was saying it. You know that. Yeah, they were. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Lost in Space was CBS, so I don't know.
This was one of the first scene. This was actually the first scene that was filmed for The Cage.
It's one of my favorite scenes.
It is.
Sometimes a man will tell his bartender things.
Sometimes a man will tell his bartender things he'll never tell his doctor.
I love that.
And I wish, while we're talking about Dr. Boyce, which is obviously who I used as my screen name, but I wish when they went and did Strange New Worlds, they had this character instead of Mabanga. It would have fit better. I think it would have been more of a McCoy-esque doctor rather. You know what I'm saying? I think it would have worked, and I don't know what they were thinking, like why they took Boyce out and put in Mabanga. It didn't fit the timeline.
I completely agree. What a fantastic character Boyce was. I think he was how little we see him in The Cage, and he's still very compelling. And I wanted to get to know him better. I really did.
He was kind of almost the logical.
Yeah,
almost in a sense like he was being not logical, but he was like the voice of reason.
Voice of reason.
Because he said that's the point. He's like, they can make us do anything we want, and we wouldn't know it.
Right.
Which always led me to believe that the Telosians let them go. That whole thing was all set up because even the whole thing with Pike grabbing him, that was all. My theory is it was all planned by them in the end to see how things would go.
The keeper even says when they're up on the surface, he said, "You are now where we wished you to be."
Right
on the surface. So
I think it was because you think about it, if they had that power that they could make you think and do anything, there's no way you would ever escape that. Like because they would always make you think you're doing the right thing, even if you think you're escaping.
Yeah, you're permanently trapped. Yeah.
He could have put him in a totally different situation when he thought he was choking him. It was the illusion of like this creature, but he could have, for all he knows, he could have been thinking he was, playing tennis with somebody or something. It could have been a totally different scenario. So yeah, that's definitely a valid point. With the relationship between Boyce and Pike, I really thought that really worked well. I thought the characterization between the two actors, John Hoyt, who was a veteran, and also Jeffrey Hunter, worked out very well. And speaking of Jeffrey Hunter, what a shame. I mean, now granted, it's the timeline here. If we had Jeffrey Hunter, we wouldn't have William Shatner. So, there were
would the show have been as good because Shatner had a way about him. I think the way he played the captain in a much better way, a much more believable. I think Pike was don't get me wrong, I love the character, but he was so very almost by the book. Everything you could tell was very do this, do this, do this. Like there was always like he knew what he was going to say and tell orders he was going to give. Whereas when you watch Shatner's performance, it was always like he was just coming up with it. You know what I'm saying? There was kind of like an excitement in what, Photon Torpedo. He's like, I don't know how to describe it, but where it wasn't
Animated.
so like rote about what he was going to say. It was like, and this is actually came from, I think, from
Sam Witwer.
Shatner
That's
himself.
Sam Witwer.
It's that inner monologue thing. Yeah, there was a great Sam Witwer who was that Bill doesn't understand what an inner monologue is like. So
no, he doesn't.
Whatever
you're
comes into his
absolutely
head comes out of his mouth.
You're absolutely right.
And I think that's what we see that,
Well, I'm going to try to give the writers and the showrunners credit. They knew to create a dynamic. We just never got to see it.
Right.
Like, okay, so maybe Jeffrey Hunter was kind of by the book. We don't know where number one was going to go. We don't know where Colt was going to go. We don't know where any of those other officers, what they were going to do or where they were going to go. So there may have been a dynamic in the works. We just never got to see it. I'm glad they smartened up. And for the second go around, like, no, bring it right out in the front right away. Immediately show everybody, here it is, because it worked. But I'm going to try to give them credit and hope that they were going to go somewhere. Like, again, I think Boyce was super interesting. No, I think number one was fantastic. Mm-hmm. Number one was you came in that, you're braver than I thought. Before Lucas, Leia was a glimmer in Lucas's eye. That's what
Look what she does. And I'm jumping ahead in the story, but we all know with the story. Think about it. They were on the surface of the planet, and he tells her to make contact. She can't get through, and then essentially the Telosian is basically saying, "This is what's going to happen. This is what we want to do. We want to pretty much want you to procreate and help our existence." And what does she do? She takes the laser and she puts it on overload, and she doesn't even ask for Pike's permission. Yeah. She just basically says it's wrong to have humans made into slaves. And he goes along with it. I mean, she took the reins on that. You know what I mean?
Charge.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I loved.
If you think about it, for 1964, and again, this is where the show's dated. Yeah. You know what I mean? It worked.
She was into the garbage chute, Flyboy. She was somebody get this walking carpet out of my way. She was everything I wanted to be.
Right.
Before I knew I wanted to be.
Clearly, that's not what the studio wanted, because they were basically like, "That's got to go."
Because they needed everyone to be like Colt, all.
But now here's the other thing too with the characters, though, and again, they only have 52 minutes to deliver on this, or maybe it was a little longer because it was a pilot.
A little long. It was
like it would have been 90 minutes. Yeah. It probably was a little longer, but still, the point is, you've got your story, and then what you're trying to do is you're trying to build up characters and have character moments, characterization, and they really come through with it. And it is a shame that it wasn't allowed to go off on its own, so to speak. I mean, think about it. Wouldn't it be cool if, now I know what people are going to say, we've got it right now, but it's not the same. I'm sorry. Strange New Worlds, I enjoy Strange New Worlds for what it is, and I don't even want to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm just going to say it. It's an alternate timeline in my opinion, and look at it in that way. But think about it. If there could have been a show with Captain Pike then in the 1960s, and then, with the Enterprise then, and then you had the Enterprise years with, William Shatner, if those two timelines kind of went the same, you know what I mean? But it would have been pretty cool, I think. But not to be.
Not to be.
No. I don't know, though. I don't know. Had they picked it up and they ran with it and kept Jeffrey Hunter and that style going,
and would
it have been as popular without William Shatner?
But here's the thing. If they picked it up and kept Jeffrey Hunter being as straight a shooter as character as he was, Boyce is the voice of reason, what were they going to do with Spock? Where were they going to put him? Or was it going to be like Next Gen, where it was an entire ship of competency porn? Because, I mean, you know what I mean? That's the thing about Next Gen. It is called competency porn because everyone is incredibly competent. And they do their jobs and they do it by the book. All of them. Except for Broccoli. What's his name?
Yeah, it is the flagship, so it should be.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, is that where they were going? We'll never know. Is that what they were going to go with this?
And they probably didn't know, to be fair. I mean, it was just in development. I mean, we know it because of all this backstory of all these episodes that we have. We've got the 79 original. We've got 7 years of Next Generation after that, and then we've got the subsequent shows that have come on after that, and then not to forget about the movies and all the stories and things that have evolved from this one episode. Which
we know where Star Trek in general went, but where were they going to go with those three people in particular? Assuming they were going to still keep the big three as the heart of the show: Pike, Boyce, and Spock, or maybe it was going to be Pike number one.
And number
That's
one
the
had more of the
different one.
characterization that Spock would have later on.
Where were they going with those three? What roads were open to them? Or had they limited themselves with those three?
Yeah. It's kind of cool to think about.
It is
But
kind of
again,
cool.
it's a shame that we will never know with that. Just wanted to put this up, and looks like I took it down. Hang on one second here. I'm just going to show some shots. How about the Enterprise? And it's earlier, before, this is the 1964 Enterprise. The nacelles are different.
Bridge is different.
Bridge, and even the underneath in the bottom of the saucer section, some is different. I thought the bridge in this, I really like the views, the different screens on the set of the cage, almost more so than I do in the original series. I just think that the screens seem more active, and obviously it's the pilot, so they had rear screen projection going on the side stations, which I thought was kind of cool. Obviously, they didn't do that so much in the original series, in the series later on, because it costs to do that. I mean, on occasion they would do it, but I thought that was pretty cool that that they did that.
Yeah, I'm glad they got rid of the gooseneck lamps.
Yes, I agree about that.
I don't know how I feel about those, but look how sharp those uniforms look. That actually looked okay.
I really like the jackets too for the for the landing party. I think
the
they
landing
look
party
really cool. And then the hardware, the communicator, and its earlier design.
Didn't realize I was muted. I'm sitting here talking.
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, I was going to say they pulled a ton from Forbidden Planet.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, the uniforms alone, and you look at the changes they made to the bridge. The tulip chairs were there. They just in the original, once they got to the series, they put the backs on them, but those are basically the same chairs.
Yeah, you're right. It's just without
and of course they used the transporter console was the same as the helm nav. Right. But if you look at the colors they used, everything was grays and blues, because they were originally, I think, thinking this was going to be a black and white. And then that's when NBC said no, color, or we wanted, because they're owned by RCA.
So they're bringing some red.
We want color, and that's why all of a sudden you got all that orange and the bright red and then the gold and the green and the red shirts, and
very vibrant.
All those changes they made, just to make the studio happy. And like we said, there was the reason they didn't have those rear projections because of the union. And because what the union said is for each of those had to have a projector. So for each one, they needed a projectionist.
Okay.
So what I think I counted at one time, there's like 7 or 8 of those screens around the bridge. So that's like 7 or 8 people they had to pay just to run. So they're like, we're just going to have a still.
Yeah. Well,
you're right. It would have been cool to have, but I think that's where and the funny thing is, and people always call Star Trek, we hear it all the time it was a cheap show. It was a cheap show to make. Not in 1960s, it wasn't.
No, not
it was
at
very
all.
expensive to make that show. It was one of the most expensive shows to make in Hollywood at the time.
TC autographs cards and scripts is saying, I want that model. Talking about the velour.
Yeah, the velour.
I do like the jackets, but if you look at them,
I like the velour. I don't mind the velour. I like that little droopy collar they have.
Well, they had they went. And then they eventually, and then in the second pilot, they changed it a little bit. They had like people call it the turtleneck, which I guess is the closest thing you could actually call it.
Yeah, it's like a mock
turtleneck.
And then there you go. You were talking about the console, and
how you guys all know where those viewers came from, right?
No,
those were from the 60 World Fair.
Oh, okay.
And they were displayed as a community, like an intercom system, and that part of that, and that's where a lot of Matt Jeffries got a lot of his ideas from the World's Fair. That was one of the things they pulled. Those were they were things that RCA had come up with to be basically was the first kind of idea for video conferencing. You'd be able to talk to people from office to office or location to location on those little gooseneck viewer things.
And look how long it actually took to take off. It really hasn't been since, I guess, the technology's been there, but really maybe in the last 10 years, you really have people doing it more so now than, that they were doing before that.
Yep. But I agree. I agree. I'm glad they dumped them. They always reminded me of War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds.
Yes, exactly.
It does have that feel, doesn't it?
It has that same look to the aliens from the movie.
I'm glad they dumped them too.
It was, yeah. It cracked me up that the transporter technician had glasses.
They hadn't reached Geordie LaForge levels of eye correction.
And there's Spock smiling because clearly he was not the emotionalist, which I guess that's what they're trying to do in Strange New Worlds. He's kind of like in this in between.
He's in between, yeah.
And he's half Vulcanian, half Earthling.
Waiting to see why he chooses to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
There's Susan Oliver.
Yeah. You talking about somebody that was very accomplished and did a lot as far as
she was
writer, director,
pilot too.
Pilot, yeah.
Yeah, and she like fly around the world or something like that.
Yeah, she crossed the in so many days. But yeah, she set a record with that. Sadly, though, she died at a very young age too. She was only in, I think, her mid to late 50s, and I think she came down with cancer.
Randy, what was cutting edge about Susan's makeup? Go ahead and type it. I'll wait. Susan, I adore her, but she does pull this one face that I see it every time, and I don't know why she pulled it.
The wink?
The weird, like,
I think it's supposed to be.
I thought it was a fear. Like they hear something in the distance and they're scared.
No,
and
I think I've watched it every time. I think she's winking at him like, just go along with this.
Oh, really? Okay, I never got that.
Bad wink.
I always wondered what that face was.
I don't think she has the ability to actually wink. Like just with her one eye, so she kind of did this.
Are you talking about when they're on Rigel and then?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't. Something's
kind of awkward.
In the
it's very awkward, and it's something you notice that doesn't fit. And the only thing I have for it was that she was trying to wink at him, like just go along with it.
Yeah, I mean, the end when she reverts back to her real state.
Oh, when she
excellent special effects makeup. Yes,
it was.
And
here's the other thing. Here's the only problem I had with that whole scene when she said they found me just a lump of flesh. They'd never seen a human before. They didn't know how to put it together. Yet they're essentially humanoid. They had 2 arms, 2 legs. They had why was she all? I mean, they could have figured out they're roughly looks like the same parts as us.
And you know what seemed very confusing too is here if they were gonna, and I'm maybe getting a little ahead of it too, but if the whole purpose was to be Adam and Eve. I mean, and not to be disrespectful to her, but how would she be able to? How would she be able to carry a baby?
She did say that everything works.
Yes,
so they all heard lady bits.
That's true. She said everything works. They rebuilt me. Yeah, okay, that's true.
But you're right. She should have been passed technically or very late in a woman's birth. Whatever.
Because even number 1 makes the comment, and she said, "You know."
Let me do the computation.
There was an adult crewman listed on the roster, and it was 18 years. But you know, a person can be deemed an adult at 18. You know, so
let's assume she was in her 20s. That still only puts her
38,
40s,
40.
You know,
tops.
Yeah.
But,
so she still could be childbearing age, certainly.
Yeah,
especially in the 22nd, 3rd century, whatever it is.
That's true. Randy saying the Enterprise bridge was so brightly lit for filming that it became uncomfortable for the actors. Roddenberry later adjusted the lighting levels for subsequent episodes to avoid complaints.
Well, that's also a form of film. You need a lot of light, which is something that's another thing with modern cameras and everything that they don't have to put up with.
Yeah, that's true.
The amount of light they had to dump into.
Yeah, the 10Ks, 5Ks, and 10Ks everywhere. The televisions were technologically backward? Maybe. I mean, they were certainly ethically backward. Or morally backward, whichever.
Well, they might not have had text, but that's really not what they said. Is they didn't know what they were doing. They said they didn't never seen one before.
Well, and William's bringing up a good point. Couldn't they read her mind when she was unconscious to get the right configuration of her body?
Also, it's implied they are not only right. It's not. It is implied that they are not the only not prisoners, but like zoo pets in the zoo. Like
there were other animals.
Screw everybody up. Like how did they acquire other ones?
There was like the weird bird thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then there was like the
did they screw them up when they put them back together? Like how did this all work?
No, that they didn't crash, remember?
So then how did they acquire them?
They say it that I think they say it, their ancestor had collected these specimens from all over the galaxy.
Well,
So,
they had the good brains
before
to
they
keep,
blew
keep
themselves
breeding
to
them and
death.
keep them going, unless they were all extraordinarily long lived.
No, I think they had
bred them.
more than one.
Speaking of Telosians,
Oh, there they are.
Meg Wiley in the left, Sandy Gimple on the right.
Our girl Sandy.
Yep. It's a good thing they didn't have a Moopsie.
And that would have been the end.
That would have been the end of them. Moopsie. Yeah, that's Sandy. Yeah, and why Sandy got that job?
Because she's petite.
Well, no, and she was one of the only ones that could handle the makeup. Didn't react badly to her skin.
Mm.
That was when she's saying that these people, they put stuff on and it would swell the makeup they were using. Then a lot of people had bad reactions, and she could put up with it. So they're like, you got the job.
Almost like latex on
whatever they were using on them. Some people had bad reactions. Yes, Sandy Gimple played the salt vampire.
That's absolutely right.
She did. She has been up to the Star Trek set.
You got that great picture. Well, you got the same picture, right? Put that one up.
Yeah.
And we hope she will be returning again next year. She is the loveliest.
She is.
She did photo ops for those that didn't know in the captain's quarters of her kind of grabbing our faces.
Yeah.
As if they're gonna, we're gonna be Kirk. The good Kirk scream. Nobody else screamed. You notice that? Everybody else got their salt sucked out of their face. Just Kirk screamed.
Well, William Shatner was what did they call him? The male Fay Ray when it came to doing stuff like that.
The male Fay Ray. Oh,
that was the reputation he had.
Yep, she was also the double for Billy Mummy on Lost in Space.
Yeah.
Right?
She
was a stunt woman. That was her job.
That's how she became a stunt woman, and it was from Lost in Space. It was like almost like free training for her because she was standing in and doubling, and then they invited her along to, if she'd be interested, and then it pretty much just went from there.
And you know what? She's still working.
85, and she's still doing stunts. It's amazing.
They need an old lady to fall. They hire Sandy.
Yeah. Now, do you recognize the actor on the right side of that photo? He was actually in another Star Trek episode. His name is Ed Madden. He was actually Fisher in The Enemy Within.
I didn't get that. Yeah. Was he down on the planet with Sulu?
No, he was the one that actually falls off the rock, and then he gets all cut up, and then he's the one that contaminates.
Oh, and he's got he's the one that brings the stuff that causes the transporter
malfunction. Yeah,
I did not know that.
And I thought it was kind of cool too, because you can see that he's got like a bandage around him, and then also when you're seeing Spock walking, he's walking with kind of like a limp. And then there's another officer, and actually I think it's Jose Tyler. He's got a bandage around his arm, or his hand rather. And this is all in reference to when Pike is talking about when they were on Rigel and they were attacked and several crewmen were injured. I think that's what they were.
Yeah, they actually attempted continuity for a show that wow, I am impressed.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
World building. Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. Go back to the briefing room. That looks okay. Like I have great appreciation for Matt Jeffrey, and when we give the tours, we go into that briefing room. We explain why the table is shaped like that. I have great appreciation.
But you know what? I would have loved to seen that the more modern table in that room though.
Yeah.
I like the ceiling. I don't know what it is.
I love the ceiling. Yeah.
The ceiling looks great. Put the TOS style tulip chairs in there with the backs on them. In that room, and I think it would have been a really cool set.
Yeah.
And of course, the device that Spock was using to this computer was actually a 1940s intercom. James has one at the set tour.
Does he really?
He found an original one, but that's what it's from. It's from the 40s. It was like an intercom for an office. Yeah. And that would have been the main base. That was like the base unit, like the secretaries would use to contact. And then the different execs, let's say, would have smaller ones in their offices.
Wow.
So who knew they had that tech even then?
Yeah, they had basic intercoms. Yeah.
I thought the laser cannon was pretty cool.
The laser, that always screamed Lost in Space to me.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, like you mean like the
glowing ball things, I guess, for some reason.
And honestly, the whole planet set maybe was a little bit lost-ish in space.
Obviously, they ditched that whenever they needed to blow something up, and they just phasered it from space.
Yeah.
You know,
Too expensive to be carting equipment down to blow things up. Just blow it.
Well, somehow they were. I don't know how they never really. Obviously, you never saw it. But they were feeding the ship's engine power down to that laser.
I thought that was an
You don't
interesting
know how
concept.
that actually was supposed to work.
Yeah.
I don't know how you beam energy.
Yeah, that was an interesting concept. It's probably just as well as they dumped that particular. That sounded like it was going to get. It'd be restricting after a while.
And I love the paintings.
The map painting is
the map paintings,
and that goes through the whole series.
Oh yeah,
love them in the the one with the Vega, where the from
Delta Vega, where no man is
Delta
gone
Vega.
before.
I love that one, and then the one like the Starbase.
Oh yeah,
again the Starbase one that one was taken from World's Fair again. Those it's kind of the towers with the discs at the top.
That is such a beautiful, and it makes me wonder, what was it on? Was it just on the wall of the studio? Was it on something? Does it still exist somewhere? Is it completely destroyed? What happened to it? Look how pretty it is.
I don't know what happened to the matte paintings. That would be they're not full size, obviously.
No, I know, but where
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe
sure
I don't know where they would have ended up in an archive. That's a good question for the Okudas or Drexler.
Yeah, the Okudas might know, or Doctorman might know,
or Doctorman might know.
Albert, what was his name? Albert Whitlock. He did a lot of paintings, like map paintings. Just incredible work. And then they were even saying when they did the doctoring for the special effects for in like 2008, they were very respectful. They did not want to alter that because I mean, think about it, 1964, and look, it holds up, to this day.
And that was one of the few disco episodes that I was like, okay, at least they were trying to keep to canon.
I didn't even see it. I fell off after the second season. I didn't.
That was during the second season because that was Pike.
Okay, but I didn't.
They did the whole cage. They went and basically gave you the backstory on the cage of why, he went back to Telos 4 after the incidents of the cage. He went back there again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Met Dina again.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was actually okay. The other one that was kind of okay was the Strange New Worlds episode where they revisited.
Oh well, that was they did Balance of
Terror, but from a kind of a different angle.
Right.
It was if Pike was still in captain.
Yeah, that was actually.
It was an interesting. Episode. Yeah, it was a pretty good episode right until the end.
No, yeah, until the end.
And
but
then I think they boogered it.
Stringing it along.
Yeah, but it was one of the better episodes of season 1 for sure.
I liked what they did though, where everything that Boyce and Pike are discussing in his quarters is everything that occurs when he's on the planet. I mean, I thought that was pretty ingenious because, I mean, he goes to Rigel 7. He has the encounter with the warrior. He goes back to his hometown. Where was it? On Earth, where it's
Montana. I think.
Oh, yeah, and the horse. Yeah.
The horses, Tango. He has the 2 horses. And then, of course, there's, when he's on Orion with, Venus, the Green Orion slave girl. Again, it's dated, pretty much saying that that's okay. And, that's going on and permitting that. That's not cool. But it's interesting, though, all those 3 things that he touched upon are the 3 things that occur and is what's driving him through the story of his,
Right. Well, they say they take all these scenarios from his mind. So those are things that he had thought about recently. So,
but it was affecting him too, though, as far as he's ready to retire. He's looking at life in a certain way. And then pretty much after he experiences everything that he's gone through, it pretty much revitalizes him because it makes him to stop to think. And he even says it, that he understood what the ship's doctor was saying, that, you either live life and, get through it, or you just basically,
either meet it head on or you lay down and
turn your back on it and wither away.
Yeah.
What do you say? Now you're starting to sound more like a doctor, bartender.
Yeah.
It was a great character moments between the 2. It really, really worked.
One of the things I noticed from in the cage at the end, and I don't remember again seeing this part, but after they let him go and they're going to beam up, you see Vina going back into the elevator and Pike is with her.
Yes.
Oh yeah, they gave her imaginary.
So they gave her an imaginary Pike, I guess.
There
Which
you
she
go.
had to know, I guess, that it really wasn't, but I guess she didn't care.
She didn't
Or
care.
did she, or did they make her forget? And what
Or,
was so
or did they keep the real Pike and gave us
they,
imaginary Pike?
They pretty much established that they can only make you mess with your sensory, like what you see and think you see. But she said they can't make you do anything you don't want to. So I would think that they couldn't make her forget.
Yeah,
They
that's a
might
good
be
point.
able to say, "Oh, well, he decided to stay or something." Right? I'm going to stay, but but I think she probably knew that.
They looked at each other. The two Pikes looked at each other, didn't they?
Yeah, right here. And what's great about that sequence, though, is when they edited the menagerie, and the keeper says Captain Kirk, and then on the view screen he sees Pike as a whole person with Vina.
That's
and
that scene.
It was like brilliant editing, and it was just a brilliant,
right.
Just the way they had it come
But
together.
I don't, like I said, I guess I had, when I had, it's been a long time since I actually watched it. I'm like, I don't remember that scene. I kept kidding. I'm like, I don't remember that scene. I was like, I guess I got so used to the cage or the menagerie.
Used to the menagerie.
Yeah. So I guess I'm like,
where you spend a lot of time going, what the hell is Spock doing?
Likes,
because by then we kind of knew him pretty well. Like we knew
he likes the singing plants.
The singing plants.
Oh, and this guy needs dental work. Serious dental work. He looks like somebody just shoved something up his, back in there. He's like, that's whoa, what's going on back there? Kind of face to me.
And there's actually an extra scene in there too, where that was cut from the menagerie, because he says, Pike makes the comment to Vina, why would an illusion be afraid? And she makes a comment that's because that's the way you imagine me. And that line ties in later when he's talking to her and he says, you said you weren't real. And then that's when the keeper overhears that and then punishes her. It really didn't make sense if you're watching just the menagerie, because he never really says, or she never says to Pike that she's not real. But it's kind of that reference when she's saying that you made me because of your thoughts. It's that implication.
What's interesting is they never did try to make her look different. I mean, other than from Orion to, his wife. That was the other thing I didn't remember, that she was supposed to be his wife when they do the park scene.
Right.
Like they're supposed to be.
I mean, she kind of looked different. She was Green Orion girl, and she was.
Yeah, but I mean, they could have put a completely separate actress in there.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying, and made her a different person. She said, "I could be anybody you want."
Right.
But yeah, the
kind of a lush set too. Go back one that with the pool and everything, the water. That's a nice, lush, expensive set right there.
I wonder if that was something else that was set up for another.
Yeah, me too.
I'm guessing that was a repurp from something else.
Yep,
like a Roman
movie out there,
Roman movie or Greek or something, and we'll go over there and use that set and dress it a little bit.
Still got that pool. Don't tear it down yet.
I bet you.
Well, they probably had the access.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I bet you that was a standing set for something else. Be my guess. Oh.
And then
this is what, in there. Oh, there's Vina.
Yeah, and that's what Randy's
nose is awesome. Look how good that looks.
Did a great job.
They did a good job with the busted nose.
That was John Chambers is the makeup department. I'm not familiar with him, but he did a good job.
John Chambers went on to do Planet of the Apes.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. And then there's that scene that we were just looking at before. And again, you have that nice moment at the end where they're conversing, and then he says, when he overhears about him saying about Adam and Eve, he says, he says Eve as an Adam, and then he says that all ship's doctors are dirty old men. And then
I like her uniform. Look at the collar on her uniform. I like that. Why didn't they give the guys that? They just gave her that.
I would have looked. I don't know if it would look good on the guys.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yes.
So they'll show you. You look at her, that woman that they got to play her on.
Oh yeah, in Unification.
Unification is just almost a dead ringer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was in Tie.
Yeah, she was there.
Oh, she was there?
She was there, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
She was
her
sitting
and
on the floor. I
Lawrence
guess she has
Celebrity
a child, like an infant child, and she was sitting on the floor, and I'm like, and I'm standing there because I was part of Shatner security there, and I'm standing there like,
God, this chick looks like this.
I'm
Yeah,
like, that's her.
yeah.
Wow.
She was a dead ringer for.
Yeah,
what's her-
well, I guess she's like the wife or girlfriend of the director, the producer.
Oh, there you go.
So it just happened to work out because she's been in other Otoy.
Oh, has she?
videos.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because you know why Cult is the running theme of all the old toy.
All of them, yes, Cult, yeah. Which was
Yeah.
why
Laurel
I think they used it because she can be live action.
Yeah, yeah. I did not catch her name, so if you know her name, but she is a dead ringer for Laurel.
She doesn't have a very common name.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
It's a very unique name. So, but I can't remember what it is. It's not like
she's different pictures of her on the internet. She looks like you said. I mean, they could be twins almost.
So, but hopefully, I'm hoping No Toy's going to do more stuff. But I think that was their opus, so to speak. That last bit, if you guys haven't seen it, it is phenomenal to watch. And then watch all the little interviewee stuff with all the different, and especially the one with the guy that did Kirk.
Sam Witwer and the one with Robin. Kirk.
Watch those two interviews.
And actually the one with Shatner himself. That one,
all of them are
a few
good.
things in there that I'd never heard.
They did all the main actors that are still alive. They did George and they did Walter. Yeah,
there are some. I'm on Trek movie, and there's some fantastic stills of her as Colt.
Yeah, so it's just
and
amazing.
Gary. The other thing, sorry, not to hijack from the cave, but the other thing that blew my mind in Unification was Gary Lockwood.
They really.
I legit thought they pulled a clip. They didn't pull a clip. They recreated him. It was unbelievable.
It was him. Like he was involved in it. It was him, and they just did the makeup.
Now, Gary Lockwood is mentioned in the credits, so he was a part of this project.
Yeah, right? He was. I think they did
They de-aged him.
Well, yeah, but they put the same thing they did with Whitmer, where they put the thing. They were able to just mask, and they just put Gary Lockwood as a young man's mask. So it was him doing whatever he was doing, which wasn't very much, but.
Yeah.
That was a little confusing part. So it was Gary Mitchell that was
because he's the powerful
resurrecting
one.
Kirk. I didn't really get Gary how he Gary Mitchell fit into the whole thing.
I read that. Well, I saw it and I very much enjoyed it. And I thought we've talked about this already, but it was very well done, and it was very meaningful, and it really definitely hit the right chords. But what I was trying to piece together from all that, though, is I realized they're tying Gary Mitchell. So is it that Gary Mitchell actually survived and didn't die from what had occurred? I mean, I guess it opens up a lot of questions, and you can go in a lot.
I think they left some. I got the impression that they resurrect, because you see she's at like Daystrom Station or something, and you see her pulling up all the genetic information on Kirk. So we assume that you did whatever, was a whole combination of things to bring him back to life.
And that someone got the badge off where he was buried under the rocks.
Well, we assume that was either Spock or Spock's son.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spock, you kind of just see it from behind, so we don't know if Vulcan that goes and gets it. But my guess is it probably was Spock's son.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to go wandering off.
But it is a
fantastic piece of film.
Not our show, Marybeth. That's our gig.
If anyone out there hasn't seen it, they absolutely should see it.
Absolutely should see it.
No.
Anyway, back to the cage.
So, as far as this episode, would you say it's definitely in your top 10, or how do you rate it?
That's a good question.
To me, it's almost like outside of.
Yeah, it is kind of outside. Menagerie, I would put in top 10 for being super clever use of this, but this is kind of
its own thing.
Yeah.
I look at it as its own thing. It is
outside of space, time, and ranking.
I just look at it as it's outside because it's not the main crew. It's not the crew that we know, with the exception of Spock.
Right. Yeah, it's not developed.
So, it's like it was like a different show.
Completely different, yeah.
So I don't really look at it like, oh, I love this episode, I love that episode. It's like there's the cage.
Right.
And then there's Star Trek, the rest of it.
Star Trek, everything else.
Star Trek, everything else.
No, because it's interesting because like with Where No Man Has Gone Before, it's definitely in my top 10 episodes. But again, that's part of Kirk and crew, but it's also a different Kirk and crew because it is the second pilot, but it has always been a favorite of mine.
Yeah, no, it was one of those ones as a young kid. I always felt that was I never liked that as much because I always felt it was kind of scary. The eyes freaked me out as a small
Gary
child.
got a little scary, yeah.
Yeah, Gary. So that I didn't really like that episode from that standpoint. Until I was a little older, and then I appreciated it more. But they did a great job with the eyes.
Oh yeah, whatever they were using on their eyes
was great.
Those were contact lenses and very painful contact lenses. Gary Lockwood.
They didn't have plastic; they were glass.
They didn't have soft contact lenses back then. They had all hard.
They're glass.
Contact lenses.
I remember my mom getting contacts for years in the 70s, and she'd drop it. Nobody move.
Yeah.
Because if you scrunch.
Now you get disposables and it's
they throw them away every day. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like it. And one thing I wanted to share is the director Robert Butler, who did this, had directed a lot of episodic television shows, well, pilot shows for different series. Notably, he had done the Batman pilot for the Batman TV series in the 60s. He did Hill Street Blues, Moonlighting, Hogan's Heroes, just to name a few. But he just passed away recently too, sadly. But definitely was well known for his, and I think he won a few Emmys too. But
it's got quite a list of accomplishments.
And then, of course, we have Alexander Courage. I wish Ross was here because when it comes to the music, but as we know, in regards to the Star Trek theme,
now he wasn't the only composer for Star Trek.
No, there's a whole.
In fact, not to pitch another podcast on your podcast, but
go for it.
There's an excellent one. Ross may know it. It's called the Soundtrack Show, and they did a 3-part episode on the first season of Star Trek just for music, and it's very well done. It's very in depth, and they go through about why and how they created the cues and how the unions and stuff required them that they couldn't reuse things. They could only do it so many times they could reuse it,
right?
Before they had to have somebody even re-record it, that kind of thing. It's really fascinating. It's 3 45-minute podcasts, and it's called the Soundtrack Show. And like I said, it's if you just listen just for the Star Trek episodes, it's worth it.
We actually had Gerald Fried on the show before he passed away, and you talk about episodic television. He did so much work, and a lot of the music, that he did for Star Trek, notably that immediately comes to mind is the music from Shore Leave, which also was used in The Side of Paradise, the episode with Marimonde, the Paradise Syndrome. There's, I think, 3 other episodes too, but to your point, there were a lot of composers that actually were involved with classic Star Trek. It wasn't just Alexander Courage. And also Matt Jeffries, who we talked about earlier. The designs and everything, incredible. And he actually was born about an hour and 15 minutes away from here in Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
And it's funny, he went on to do other shows that were totally not science fiction, like as the production designer. We always give him credit for but he I forgot what shows I'm sure you look at his IMDb, he went on to do completely shows that were not anything remotely science fiction. Which is kind of interesting. But his whole background was he was an aviator in the military, and we see a lot of that in the design of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's nice that he got
military cues. And of course he gets the nod for the Jeffries too.
You just took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say it was nice. It's referenced never in an episode of original series Trek, but it's nice that it's actually referenced in the Next Generation where
Next Generation, yeah. They always say when Scotty used to jump out feet first out of the tube.
Yep.
That was Matt Jeffries, because that's how you exited
the bomber.
The chin hatch on a B-17. You jump out feet first, and that's how they those are the things that he's always thinking that way.
Yeah. He said TC said the Batman pilot script just sold yesterday for over $4,000. Wow.
You know what I read even more crazy than that was the ruby slippers from Wizard of Oz went for like 28 million.
Oh my God.
And after they paid the auction fees, it was over 30.
Wow. I thought there was a pair of ruby slippers at the Smithsonian.
Well, here, there was a friend of mine that texted it to me, and he's usually right. So
wow. Or maybe there were two pairs.
I'm sure there was more than one pair.
Pairs.
If you know anybody that does wardrobe, there's never one of anything.
Right.
Generally. I mean, there's always multiple.
Yep. There is a pair, interestingly, a mismatched pair at the Smithsonian. So I hope the ones that just went for 30 million, I hope they were matched set.
Hopefully somebody didn't do a switcheroo there.
It was 28 million, and then after all the fees and everything, it was 32.5.
Oh, that's crazy. That's insane.
For ruby slippers.
I wonder if it was Peter Jackson.
I don't know who. Somebody with a lot of money.
The theory is that he owns Eagle One, so that's a drop in the bucket. And I'm referring to the 44-inch Eagle. There was only 3 of them in this series.
I'm surprised that wasn't in Greg Jean's collection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Greg Jean had an amazing collection.
Oh my God. The stuff that he had, people didn't even know that he had.
He had one of the space. I think he had 1 or 2 of the spacesuits from the series, if I'm not mistaken. And also Lily Jean Norman, she did she was the soprano voice for The Cage.
Oh, in the music, you mean?
In the music, yeah.
Interesting. They didn't really reuse that. I definitely don't like that open. I mean, when they finally went to the regular season, regular series, it was so much better. The open,
yeah,
totally agree.
The one that they did for the pilot was it always came, even by today's standard. I mean, even by 60 standards, I felt it looked cheap.
Yeah,
with the blue colored. I don't know. I didn't like the graphics at all. It didn't.
No, I totally agree. So just to go through real quick, just so everybody gets to see who was in the cast. There's Jeffrey Hunter, Susan Oliver, Leonard Nimoy, Majel Barrett, John Hoyt, Peter Ludick, or I'm forgetting his name. And then
Laurel
Goodwin. And then there's Ed Madden, Adam Rourke. He was the communication station. And then Clegg Hoyt, who was the transporter chief.
I always thought he looked like his chair was too short.
Yeah.
Doesn't it always look like he was like
his elbow right up there?
Yeah, you're right.
I always noticed that when I was watching this.
Her was a bit taller. Oh, there's Sandy.
And there's Sandy on the end.
She's a bit younger there.
Yeah. And she's the third Telosian. Yeah,
she's the one that don't speak.
John Lorimer, he did 2 other Trek episodes. He was in Return of the Archons. He played Tamar, who gets killed.
Right.
And then he also was in For the World is Hollow and I Touched the Sky.
Yeah, he looks familiar.
He was in that. The second guy is Leonard Moody. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. He was the second oldest person to be in classic Star Trek, and he was born in 1883. Ironically enough, the first actor who was the oldest was the actor that played Robert Johnson in the episode The Deadly Years, when they first beam down and they find him. He was the oldest actor.
I'm 35.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other actor is Anthony Josham. Interesting enough, though, Leonard Modi, who's in the middle, he did a ton of stuff. I mean, he was involved on Broadway. He was involved in silent films. I mean, he has I think he did over 150 type of appearances in movies. So he definitely had a long resume. So you never know who's in Star Trek. It's pretty incredible. And this actress, who's a stunt person, her name, I'm forgetting her last name. Her name is Carol. She actually did another episode of Classic Trek, and you'll probably, when I do this, you'll recognize her. And Yeah.
Oh, that was the the one with the rock people. Why am I
Yeah, the Savage Curtain.
Savage Curtain? Yeah, I couldn't remember it.
So there you go. But yeah, any last minute thoughts before we start to wind down?
It's classic, and I'm glad that we were able to they were able to piece it back together, and that it didn't end up being lost.
Really gives fantastic insight into the evolution of this show and the thought processes. And you're right, Rizzo, you can see Forbidden Planet fingerprints
all over it. And that's what I've always considered. And it's not just this, Lost in Space as well. I mean, the fact that Jupiter 2 was a saucer in itself was another direct copy, but which I've always said, well, Forbidden Planet is like the grandfather of all this modern science fiction. These, like so many things taken from it. I mean, how many scenes have we seen the big cavern, with the little tiny bridge going across? Who builds stuff? Why would you build that? With no rails.
Yeah, with no rails. Yeah, and the transportation and the weapons and
I mean, there's so many things they
we're going in a ship, but it's going to be kind of military-esque. We're going to have rank and hierarchy, but we're all on the ship and we're going somewhere.
Well, yeah, you just look at Star Trek. I mean, you had the captain. The captain had a good relationship with the doctor.
Well, so did Forbidden Planet had it too. They just didn't really.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, Forbidden Planet had basically you had the captain,
and the doctor.
The doctor, you had the relationship with the engineer. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like it was completely. It was laying the groundwork for this.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, but in speaking about Forbidden Planet, sadly, Earl Holliman just had passed away just about a week ago. So, and I think he was probably the last surviving.
He was the cook, right?
He was the cook.
Yeah.
He was in his 90s.
That was so 1950s too. I mean, the whole scene with him, and it was so stereotypical of that kind of like the cookie, the ship's cook kind of that way talking. But
you had Leslie Nielsen, who was the captain, and then you had Warren Stevens, who was the doctor, and
and then you had what's his name from $6 Million Man, Oscar Goldman.
Goldman,
he was the engineer.
Yeah.
So it was a funny thing about. Because I had seen Leslie Nielsen in like the stupid stuff, like the Naked Gun, before I think I ever saw him in Forbidden Planet, and I'm like, wait a minute, when's he gonna hit him in the face during this movie?
Well, here's the interesting thing about him. I mean, there's another actor who really I shouldn't use the term reinvented himself.
Airplane.
He had different points of his career because he was like a leading man type in the 1950s and the 60s. Then he went to in the later 60s and into the 70s. He was even into the 80s, early 80s. He was like the heavy. He was always like, the bad guy.
Oh, really? I don't think I've ever seen him as a bad guy.
I've never seen him as a bad guy.
Cannon or
well, the first, Airplane was what year was that when he did?
Airplane came out in 1982, but then 1980. Then he started doing the movies with the Zucker brothers, and then what happened was he went right into comedy, and it's like he had these different points in his career that he did.
But see, as a kid, I didn't see Forbidden Planet.
We skipped a whole section when we were.
Because you got to remember, couldn't see movies. We didn't just call them up.
Yeah.
On a
right.
Wait for that to come around.
I've never seen Forbidden Planet until somewhere in the 80s.
Oh wow!
Because it wasn't on anywhere. So I was already used to Leslie Nielsen as Don't Call Me Shirley.
Right.
Yeah. We all were.
Yeah. Well, you're talking to the guy that loved the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. So I watching those shows.
It didn't get run in the afternoon on Chiller or Creepers, whatever the hell afternoon. Those.
Forbidden Planet was, I think, on Channel 9 or Channel, I'm going to say 5 or 9 out of New York City, because I definitely saw it in the 70s.
I don't remember it.
70s. Yeah.
I remember seeing a lot of those old horribles, like This Island Earth.
Yeah.
And
they played
like and some of those other ones. Day of the Triffids.
Day of the Triffids at 63. You'd have to wait for them to recycle through.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I just missed it for whatever reason. I was aware of it because we all knew Robbie the Robot.
Right, exactly.
But again, you couldn't go to the original video store to go rent it. You had to wait till it came on television.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan. Good to see you out there. Dan's in Pennsylvania. He's saying he did Westerns too. My dad watched them. Yeah,
I'm sure he did.
He was in the pilot for, what was it? The Hawaii Five-0. And that was in 68, but he was more of a heavy.
I'm less dreaming aboard this ship.
So anyway, well, this was great discussion. And I mean, we've probably talked for another hour or 2 hours on this, but I'm going to kind of curve it a little bit because I know it's Sunday and it's getting a little.
Actually, gotta go to work tomorrow.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we are going to go to the shout outs and I'm going to give you guys first dibs on that. So let's hear what you're doing.
We're kind of continuing with holiday stuff. And last week we did Muppet Christmas,
which was so good.
Christmas Carol, which was always great. It's a classic. If you haven't seen it, it really is a good rendition of that story. And then we're going to do Miracle on 34th Street. So we're kind of keeping some more classics. And then the following week, right before Christmas, we're not doing a Christmas movie because it's the 50th anniversary of The Man with the Golden Gun. That's how our logic rolls. So, but it's the 50th anniversary. So we got to do it like when it happens. And then we just found out Roy's going to join us for that so that's 2 weeks from Wednesday, or a week from Wednesday. So that's what we got. And then we're kind of we're thinking of doing something special for New Year's Day evening. But we're kind of still working on it. Hopefully it'll be like a watch party sort of thing.
So stay tuned, folks. And that's on Wednesdays that you're on, and you're on at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yep. On Facebook and YouTube.
Yep. Facebook and YouTube.
Okay. Cool. I want to give a shout out also to the Country Gate Players in Belvedere, New Jersey. So they are on hiatus for right now, but Bill will be announcing the 2025 season shortly. So you can go to www.countrygate.org for the information on that, or you can visit Bill's website, which is www.billscarrato.com. And that is for Country Gate Players in Harmony, Belvedere, New Jersey, excuse me. And also Captain Phil. I haven't talked to Phil. I'm not sure if I'm keeping up on his schedule right. He is on Friday nights, 9 to 11:30 p.m.
Friday night freeform.
Yep. Does he have anything else going on that you're aware of?
Not this week, I don't believe, because I think he's off. He does still do Thursday lunch with Bill, which is the politics show. And then he does Thursday evenings. He still does Captain Phil's Planet, I think every other Thursday. So I believe this Thursday he is off.
Okay, there you go. So definitely tune into Captain Phil, WUSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook, New York.
Every once in a while, you catch us.
Also, the Star Trek Original Series set tour, William Shatner is coming back, and that is going to be in June. And that the dates that I had was 27th, 28th, and 29th. And that's the Star Trek Original Series set tour. For information, you can go to www.startrektour.com, and we all are affiliated with that. Mike and Marybeth, or is there any talk? Do we know the dates for Trek Ticonderoga yet, or is that still?
We do. Hang on, I will tell them to you. They are August, I want to say 15, 16, 17.
Somewhere right around there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got August 15, 16, 17 for Trek Ticonderoga this year. That is not in concrete yet, but that's what we're looking at.
Okay. So there we go. So mark your calendars because that's coming up as well, too. Also want to give a shout out to my friend Jeffrey Morris, the Eagle Obsession. Things are progressing. For information on where things are at, you can go to www.eagledocumentary.com. In fact, they were just doing practical effects in the Twin Cities this past week. So again, if you go to the website, you can track all of that. And the movie is scheduled to be released for 2025 next year. So it's very exciting. So stay tuned for more information in regards to that. Just want to give a shout out to Martha from Studio One Thrift. Martha deals with quality, stylish, affordable clothing that you can order online or go to the physical store location, and you can register at the website, which is www.studioonethrift.com. Be sure to register. And before I go on, Vince is asking about any guests for Trek Ticonderoga. ID on the guests yet?
Nothing that I can announce yet.
Me and Mary Beth will be there.
We will be there. Yes.
I'll be there, Vince. There's an incentive too.
Not much of an incentive to go, but
Vince and I have been friends since for like as we like to say for 100 years. So I'm just busting his chops really bad right now, and I just can't wait to see what the rebuttal is going to be. Trust me, if he goes, it'll be to see you guys. It's not going to be to say me. In regards to the Space 1999 podcast, this episode, new episodes are released every Sunday. And today, the latest episode that was dropped was The Missing Link, which is with guest star Peter Cushing. So Warren, Friedrich, and I discuss for about an hour the specific episode, and we usually have a guest that'll come on to join us and talk about the episodes. So that is the latest that just dropped today. So definitely you can watch that on Facebook or YouTube. And I want to give a shout out to my son Ryan for his online coaching, and he has a coaching service. He's a coaching service provider. It is free to register. Check out his website. It's www.runbyryan.com. And I want to give a shout out to my friend Lou Place. Lou's out there tonight. He just completed his latest film, and it is available for streaming on YouTube. And I will put that into the chat section right after the show. And it is called Found in Space. And I actually had some fun appearing in the movie too. So Lou is really cool with the stuff that he does. You can stream it for free on YouTube. So definitely check it out and give it a like, and hope you enjoy it. And also want to give a shout out to St. Nick of Bethlehem, which is now playing at theaters. And it's going to be pretty much centralized throughout the country. It was directed by Spencer Fulmer and Daniel Rohrbach, and it was filmed right here in the Lehigh Valley in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So it is definitely a really feel-good Christmas movie, kind of partially based on a true story as well. So if you haven't had the chance to check it out, definitely check it out. I did have a small part in it where I was an extra in it, but unfortunately I wound up on the cutting room floor, but I did make the credits. So, but it was a lot of fun. And again, it's a really, really cool movie. So definitely a good family movie and good for the holidays. So definitely check it out. And then lastly, I just want to give a shout out to my friend Ross Amico, and also my co-host. And Ross does 3 shows: Picture Perfect, which is on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sweetness and Light on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then The Lost Chord, which is on Saturday 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then just to let everybody know, no show more than likely next weekend, possibly on Sunday, but it's not looking like we're going to do anything. So anyway, show will be back on, and I actually have the wrong date on there, so I dropped the ball on that. It's actually Friday, December 20th. So the date is right, the day is wrong. And we're doing another special crossover episode I'm going to be doing with Mike and Marybeth. And we are going to be celebrating another 60th anniversary, which is going to be Goldfinger, the 1964 James Bond film. So we will be covering that and celebrating the 60th
Bond
anniversary.
fans tune into our show and tune into Roy's show.
Yeah.
I expect you to die.
It's such a good movie.
Can I help you?
Actually, Sherry and I were really lucky. We got to see that in a movie theater in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, probably about, it's probably like about 6 or 7 years ago. It was definitely before COVID. And it was cool to see that movie on the big screen. So
yeah, and those, we'll talk about it, but all those old James Bonds, I only watched them because remember they were always on the ABC Sunday night movie.
Yep,
that's how I used to know. It was always like, oh, it's a James Bond movie.
Yeah, and they were always on Sundays.
They were always on Sunday.
They always were on Sundays. So, but I want to thank you both for coming on the show again tonight. And I know we had a delay from last Sunday, so thank you for your flexibility. And it's always a pleasure. It's great having friends on and talking about the stuff that we love. And I mean, it's Star Trek, so there we go. Can't go wrong with that. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely.
Always fun.
Yeah. So looking forward to being on your show in about a week and a half and having you back on in almost a week and 3/4.
Yeah. Right after that.
Until then, everyone, thank you so much. Hoping everyone has a good week ahead. Stay safe. And as we always like to say, live long and prosper.
May the force be with you.
That too. Take care.